addictive, coming to Israel. Every visit, something new to learn. Every visit, another truth to discover. Our delegation is kind of tired today. You've all arrived from the magnificent Golan Heights, but I see you all changed and are ready for our dinner. So we'll get started right away as we will be discussing the main issues that Israel is dealing with these days, the security tensions in the north and south, Jerusalem, the nation-state law, and more. In Jerusalem, and in many municipalities throughout the country, on October, the residents will be electing new heads of municipality, new mayors, and in Jerusalem this is a big issue. The mayor of Barkat is leaving and there are many candidates. Today with us we have Knesset member Rachel Azaria from the Kulani Party, who is running for mayor, and I'd like to call upon her to join us to open this important evening. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
It's a bit loud sound. Okay. So we're talking about Jerusalem, and I just mentioned that there are so many candidates. So first of all, why? Why do it? Why jump into this field with all the politics and all to try to run to be the mayor of Jerusalem?
First of all, I went into politics for Jerusalem. I love Jerusalem. Do you hear me? Yes? No?
And without the microphone, is it better?
Is it better without the microphone?
No,
I'm getting up. Is this better when I stand up?
That's quieter.
Okay.
That's for sure better. For our live broadcast, as many are watching us online,
Okay.
I'm sorry for this technical issue. Back there, do you hear us? Yeah. Okay. So, I'd like to hold the microphone for all our viewers abroad. Why go into this field of politics with so many candidates out there and run for the mayor of Jerusalem?
So first of all, as I was saying, I went into politics for Jerusalem. I love Jerusalem. I think that in Jerusalem we build the future of the state of Israel. Something that we realized in Jerusalem, and that many other places haven't realized it, and I can say I've been for the past 3 years in the Knesset. People don't realize that everyone is here to stay. No one is going to disappear. And in Jerusalem we realize that. And once we realize that, it gives us an opportunity to work together. My mother made Aliyah from the United States. My father made Aliyah from Tunis. I come from a family with a very, very large range of orthodoxy and and Chiloni. And we learned how to sit around the table and figure out together how we can live and work together. And I believe that in Jerusalem, we can make this happen. I know that we're working throughout the country, and President Rivlin talked about the tribes. And now we have to find a way to live together, the tribes. And I believe that in Jerusalem, we can make it happen. I don't believe we came after 2,000 years to Israel, to our beloved state of Israel, to fight. And this is where we build the building blocks for the future of the state of Israel. I've been for the past 3 years a member of the Knesset, and I saw how it's so easy to polarize the different segments of Israeli society. This is something that we've been doing for the past 3 years and dealing with a lot of hatred. In Jerusalem, I believe we can build the future, and that's why it was so important for me. I'm leaving a very comfortable place in the Knesset as a member of the parliament, as a chair of an important committee, the Reform Committee, working on banking and on urban planning, the major issues that the head of my party, Moshe Kahlon, has been leading. And I'm leaving it to come back to Jerusalem because I know that this is that duty cause. This is where I need to be. This is where I can really make a difference for the state of Israel.
Now, the question is about the current situation. The mayor, Nir Barkat, is considered a person who really revolutionized what we see in Jerusalem. How do you relate to the current situation, positively, negatively?
So I think that Mayor Nir Barkat did quite a lot of good for the city. Some of the times I was in the coalition, some of the times I was in opposition, and then back in the coalition, and then I joined the Knesset. I think that there are major challenges that haven't been dealt with, a lot that have to do with urban planning. On the one hand, the city of Jerusalem is the size of Paris, but it feels very crowded, even though it's not crowded at all. And the problem is that we're not planned well enough. We stand in traffic jams, the apartments aren't built well enough, and we really need to realize that in 2048, which means 100 years of the State of Israel, we're going to be the most crowded country in the OECD, in the relevant countries. And once we realize that, we need to think differently of urban planning, especially in Jerusalem, that we're a city that the planning and the building is even more complicated and sophisticated. Second major issue is everything that has to do with job opportunities. Unfortunately, the youngsters are leaving Jerusalem. And I think that more than anything, we need to make sure that the capital of Israel is a city that people enjoy living in. It can't be, you can't only have people that live here for ideology. You have to have people that want to live here and can live here. And you know, when Mayor Barkat, when he started his first term a decade ago, he said he's going to make it clear, or he's going to change the situation in Jerusalem that a lot of people will want to live in the city. And he was very successful in that. And 2.5 years into his first term, I met with him and I said, you know, Neil, you've done an amazing job in that. But now we have to see how we can make sure that people not only want to live in the city, but actually can live here and have a good life with education and housing and job opportunities. And I know that he made a lot of effort there, but unfortunately we're not there yet. You mentioned the tribes, and one of the tribes that even President Rivlin related to is the Arab population. And in Israel and in Jerusalem, some of them are not even Israeli citizens. How do you relate to that challenge? Because it is a challenge. It's a big challenge, but it's definitely a challenge that we can deal with. I think more than anything, when we just look at everything in a civil way. Once we start looking at these issues, we start adding national issues, it gets much more complicated. We have a member in our party, someone that is very active. His name is Ziad. He lives in Eastern Jerusalem. And he was one of the founders of MADA. How do you say MADA? Magen David Adon. No, in English.
First aid of the...
MADA, you know what MADA is?
It's not Red Cross, the Red Star of David.
Okay, they know. Okay. They know. He founded MADA in Eastern Jerusalem. And I think this is a very Jerusalemite kind of story. Because what happened is that after there was a wave of terror, so whenever the ambulances would be called into Eastern Jerusalem, when they would start driving in, they were stoned. And then they had to wait for the police to escort them. But as they were waiting for the police to escort them, people at Eastern Jerusalem were dying while they were waiting for the ambulance. And then the residents of Eastern Jerusalem said, hey, maybe instead of the police escorting the ambulances, we can do it. And they got together and they organized, on WhatsApp groups that tell people when they need cars to come and escort the ambulance to make sure they won't be stoned. And as that started, they became active in MADA, and today there are many volunteers in Eastern Jerusalem. They also get first aid, they're learning how to be paramedics. Learning to be paramedics became an amazing job opportunity for women in Eastern Jerusalem. And here you are, one small story that shows how we can really make a difference and work together and live together when we take the major issues or the ideological issues out and we look at everything that has to do with day-to-day life. And I think this is the way we have to deal with Eastern Jerusalem. See what the needs are and figure out how to make it work. I think that sometimes people think that Jerusalem is much more separate, Eastern and Western Jerusalem, than what actually happens. In Jerusalem, we live together. We have a city that you can sometimes even hear the city's heartbeat. And I don't believe there can ever be a happy city if there's a wall that goes down the city. And that's why I think that Jerusalem has to stay united, and we have to make sure that we give the opportunities to people in Eastern Jerusalem, job opportunities, educational opportunities, health opportunities, everything to make sure that their life would be as good as possible, and there's no reason their life wouldn't be good.
Short answer, please. Applause. Short answer, please. Let's say you're elected as mayor. Good luck. What's the first thing you want to do when you go into office as a mayor?
So there are 5 different issues that I want to focus on, and the first thing I'll do is I'll take every one of the departments and sit with them and figure out with them what's the plan and how we're going to make what the progress we want to make in a year. 1 is education, 2nd is housing, 3rd is job opportunities, 4th is transportation, and 5 is culture. These are the issues that we have to deal with every one of the different groups, the segments of Israeli society here in Jerusalem. And I learned very closely that when you take on yourself responsibility, and if you sit with the people that have to make it happen, if you sit with them weekly, at the end, it happens. In Jerusalem, unfortunately, too many people say, you know, it's a hard city. It's too difficult. People don't pay enough taxes. We have too many segments of Israeli society. How can we make it work? Now I tell you, I'm a mother of 4. And sometimes I feel that they think of Jerusalem like a child with learning disability. Okay, he has learning disability, but we can still figure out how to make it work. We can't just keep saying, oh, it's a very complicated city. We have to make it work. And I don't know how many of you think about it that way, but once you figure out this is something that we have to do, and this is our Zionist responsibility, and this is what we have to make happen, to figure out how to make everyone live together and how to run the city so it will be an amazing city, this will happen.
Knesset member Rachel Azaria, thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Knesset member Sharen Haskel is a member of the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee. She is 34 years old, the youngest member of the coalition. Haskel is the first female combat IDF soldier serving as a Knesset member. She served in the Israeli Border Police. That's real serious stuff. Knesset member Haskel represents Israel as a member of the Youth Committee at the International Interparliamentary Union. It's the IPU. I now have the honor to call upon Knesset member Haskel to discuss the challenges of the state of Israel these days. How's the sound, by the way? I have an inner stereo system. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to have to talk loud. Lots of audience here.
Good evening, everybody.
Now, let's talk about events like this, because you take part in so many events, and I understand that tonight you're going to another event. These events that are strengthening the alliance. How do you see the significance of events like this, first of all?
Well, I think it's mainly the communication. The more we communicate together, Israel and the international community or representatives from all around the world, the better the dialogue is. You can be so, wrongly directed, but what reporters report on news and media or social media or even, lies that people are spreading on canvases, we've seen that a lot. And basically it's either partial truth, some of it is complete lies. And when you come here to Israel or when Israelis go overseas and we start discussing the real issues that Israel needs to face or issues that are happening right now in Israel, you start a dialogue and suddenly this whole complex picture is opening straight in front of you and you start to understand the situation of Israel, and it's easier, or it's more directly passed to someone who's never been here or is first visit or anything like that. And so I see those personal meetings as one of the main bridges in order to bring the real Israel towards the international community.
You must be asked a lot these days about the Chok HaLeom, some call it the nation-state law. People could tell you, listen, you're a Jewish state, you have the law of return.
Why does Israel need another law, legislation, controversy, some would say, to define that Israel is the Jewish state?
Okay, so again, people can be fed from a lot of what's being told in the media, but let's speak about the facts, okay? Israel in its first years, David Ben-Gurion wanted to create a constitution. Israel doesn't have a constitution today, but that's what the founding fathers wanted Israel to have, because a constitution is something important. It's something that prescribe or fulfill all of the needs of your people, of your civilian. It inscribe all of your rights as a human being or as a citizen of Israel. One of the major issues for David Ben-Gurion that he's not able to write a constitution in the first years was mainly because of the religious ultra-Orthodox, who really wanted the constitution to be a very religious constitution, because they believe that the only constitution needs to be a constitution that comes from God. And so in that perspective, they didn't allow to have any kind of constitution being written to Israel. And so David Ben-Gurion has said, okay, we'll have a committee and we'll start working on a future constitution by slowly adding the basic foundation legislation. So we have quite a few foundation legislations. One of them that we never were able to decide about is a segment that speaks about the cultural aspect of the state of Israel. For 14 years, different legislation and discussions about the character of the state of Israel have been debated in the Israeli parliament. Different version of this legislation. But one thing is certain, in all of it, for 70 years, that Israel is going to be called Israel, its symbols, its anthem, its Jewish character, its Jewish nationality. Everybody are certain of it, particularly with so much legislation that's being describing that, like the anthem legislation and different legislation, but it wasn't a foundation law. And so this is such a celebration this week, because finally, after 70 years, after 14 years of debating and bringing different legislations, after a year and a half of discussions in the committee about the national bill, which is a part of our future constitution, we were able to form and gather something that we agree on. More so, if David Ben-Gurion and all the founding fathers of Israel would have seen this segment, they would have signed it today, even yesterday. Why? Because a lot of the religious aspect is not there. The national bill describes our national rights, our historical rights, our cultural rights, and it speaks very minorly about the religious aspect of that. And this is a dream come true of David Ben-Gurion. I believe that in the future, when the next generation is going to look back on what happened here today, after we've passed such an important legislation that describe our character, the opposition is going to be looked at extremely negatively. Extremely negatively.
Now we have important friends here, Anthony Scaramucci, Mike Huckabee, and all this very important delegation, and they're going back. And we hope, and we believe, and I also know that there'll be great emissaries. What is the most important message these days that you hope, that you wish, that you ask, that they take away? And there are a lot on the media. What is the most important message these days?
Wow. I would probably say there's one message. After thousands of years, the Jewish people returned to their homeland. They are native people to this land. After so much persecution, we were able to build here a safe haven for Jews, not just Israelis, but from all around the world. The basic right of describing the character of our country is a basic right that every country has. And it doesn't matter if we look on England, who have, a cross on their flag. It doesn't mean that they don't give full and equal rights to Jews or to Muslims in England. In the Constitution of Italy, it says that the Catholic religion is the official religion in Italy. But it doesn't mean that it is a discriminative country. In different anthems and flags and symbols, there are so many religious symbols because they are part of the culture. Now, in Israel, our flag, a beautiful flag, yes, it's got a Jewish character, a beautiful historic story that stands behind it, including our symbols, our anthem. This is a basic right of every people to be able to describe their character. And this legislation that we've passed is doing exactly that. And I think that the message is to bring that out. Everybody who are talking about a racist bill have no idea what's written inside this bill. It comes from ignorance. And it comes from a hypocrisy as well, because every other country that did the exact same thing, and even further than that, was not called in these names.
Knesset member, Elena Scan, thank you very much for joining us. Take this opportunity to take a bite to eat. We're going to fix a few things about the sound and we'll continue momentarily. Whenever something important, an important event of support, solidarity, even a protest on behalf of the people of Israel in the land of Israel, it seems that Ken Abromowitz is always there. We see him at our events in Israel, in America, with the truth. Ken Abromowitz is out there presenting the truth. And when he says it, you believe it. Ladies and gentlemen, Ken Abromowitz.
Thank you very much, Yossi. It's great to see everybody here today. I have to ask for you to be quiet because this is an audience participation 5 minutes. And I'm going to designate you all to be professors. And I'm designating myself as a professor for 5 minutes. And we're going to grade our leaders. We're going to grade President Trump, Prime Minister Netanyahu. We're going to grade the EU, and we're going to grade the Iran Supreme Leader. And we're going to grade them on 3 issues, which are the 3 building blocks of any society. Can they grow the economy? Number 1. Can they protect the culture of the country? And number 3, can they protect people physically? These are the 3 basic building blocks of any society. And if you take these building blocks in reverse order, using different terminology from our founding fathers, it's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Happiness being economics, liberty being culture, and life being physical security. So we're going to grade these 4 leaders on their ability to create life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which is what a government's function is supposed to be. So let's start with Prime Minister Netanyahu. So I'm going to need your help, and I have opinions on the grades, but I need your help. So, can Prime Minister Netanyahu grow the economy? A, B, C? Anybody want to give an answer, or I'll A. A. Anyone want to give a B or C?
B.
B. Any C's? Do I hear a C? Okay, just taking those few averages, it comes up to about an A-, which is what I would have given them. And there's too much regulation and red tape in this country, so that's why he doesn't get an A. Can Prime Minister Netanyahu protect the culture of the country, both the secular culture, the basic rights, and the religious culture. ABCs. Anyone? A. Do I hear a B or a C? A. B. C. Okay, so now we get closer to a B, which is what I would give him. There's two issues. You have to, there's many issues, but you have to protect your culture, but you also have to make sure that cultures who are against you, like the Palestinian Authority, cannot incite their people with irrational emotions, and he hasn't done enough to stop that. And finally, can Prime Minister Netanyahu protect people physically? A, B, C? Anyone? C. Okay, do we hear any B's or A's?
A minus.
A minus.
B.
Okay, I'll call it a B minus. A typical problem with democracies is we have all this power, we never use it. So here these arsonists, terrorists, arsonists, inflame southern Israel, and the IDF didn't blow them up. That's bad. So you have to protect the people. So anyways, to conclude, A, B, and D. Let's go to President Trump. Can President Trump grow the economy?
A plus.
A plus. A minus. Anyone else?
A plus.
A plus plus? Okay. Well, I would give him an A minus. I think he's doing great on the economy, but he's purposely said that he doesn't want to go after entitlements. I don't blame him for not going after entitlements. But Medicare and Social Security go bankrupt in 15 years. That's a problem. Can President Trump protect our culture? A, B, C. Anyone A's? Do I hear some A's? B's? B. Anyone else? A. I'll give him a B. The reason for that is he's doing a great, we have two enemies. We have the left, which he does a great job against, but we also have the Greek, the Islamists. And he has not declared the Muslim Brotherhood to be a terror organization. That's a deficiency in his protecting our culture. And can he protect us physically? A's, B's.
A plus.
A plus? Any B's, C's?
No. A plus.
A plus.
Okay, well, I give him a B. The audience gave him an A. He did get an extra $100 billion for the military, which is wonderful, but he still doesn't have a well-defined Iran strategy. Iran's the #1 existential risk to America. They promised to kill everyone in America. They're working on nukes and ICBMs, which actually the Democrats finance. This is the problem. He needs a better defined strategy. Okay, let's go to the EU. Can the EU is just a collective blob, but can they run the economy? D. You're being charitable. Can they protect their culture?
D.
F. Can they protect themselves physically? So we do not want to be Europe. Western Europe is dying. Eastern Europe is thriving, and we cannot become like Western Europe and die with them. And I hope the Brits leave the EU so they can survive. Finally, the supreme leader of Iran, the #1 terrorist in the world, can he grow the economy? No. F. Can he protect the culture of the country? No. F. He's destroying the culture of the country. And can he protect people physically? Actually, the only thing he can do is protect people physically because it's a police state. So not that he can protect them, but he can control them with physical power. Well, the days are not long for Iran. In a year or two, I think the government will be in jail if they're still living. And we have to help make sure that that happens. So, thank you very much for your time. And thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, Ben Ramos. Zev Elkin immigrated to Israel in 1990. He taught at the Hebrew University's Department of the History of the Jewish Nation and the Department of History as a politician. Zev Elkin held many roles, among them chairman of the Likud faction, chairman of the Land of Israel lobby, chairman of the Jerusalem lobby,
served as Minister of Immigration and Absorption, Minister of Jerusalem Affairs and Heritage, and member of the Political Security Cabinet. Today, Minister Elkin is running as the Prime Minister-supported candidate for Mayor of Jerusalem. We will speak tonight in English with Knesset member, Minister Zev Elkin. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening and welcome everybody.
So, Jerusalem is loved by everyone. It's a special magic to Jerusalem. How do you keep Jerusalem such a place where everyone loves to be, loves to visit, and feels at home?
It's a very interesting question because you need to understand that Jerusalem now, we will see a lot of challenges in the next years. But if you are trying to understand what are the roots of the problems and the challenges of Jerusalem that can bring to you the possibilities that different kind of the citizens in Israel can live together in Jerusalem, you will see that there is only one root for all of the problems of Jerusalem, the demographic structure of the city. The state of Israel today doesn't have any kind of solution to this kind of demographic structure. The percentage of the ultra-Orthodox population in the Judaic sector, the issue of the big percentage of Arabic population, and so on and so on. But what is interesting, the future of the state of Israel will be almost the same like Jerusalem today. If you are trying to see on Jerusalem today, you can see a kind of DNA of the future of the state of Israel. Then, in our trying to find the model of managing of the city, of creating of the atmosphere that different group of population can work together in the city, can live in the city, I'm sure that we will succeed to find the future models for the management of the state of Israel.
Thank you. Now let's talk about the demographic issue. There will be, according to some of the statistics, more Arabs in Jerusalem. Do you think that we'll see an Arab mayor of the capital of the Jewish state at one point?
First of all, you need to understand that now, in the last years at least, the demographic growth of the population, of Jewish population in Jerusalem is more than Arab. The problem is immigration from Jerusalem of the young Jewish families, by the way, from all the groups, the secular population, the religious Zionist population, and the Haredi population. And there is only one reason for this. The prices of the housing in Jerusalem. Then if you are interested to keep the Jewish majority in Jerusalem, the solution is not dividing the city of the city. The solution is promotion of the more and more building in this city for Jewish population in many directions, of course including the big areas outside of the 67 lines.
So-called controversial.
For me, it's not controversial. The part of the Jerusalem is a part of the Israeli sovereignty territory, and so we need to build much more in Jerusalem. If we are interested, they will succeed to keep the Jewish population here and the Jewish majority here. The situation now is very strange. For many years, the demographic growth of Arabic population was more than the Jewish, but the immigration in Jerusalem of Jewish population was the solution for this challenge. Now, we are in opposite situation. The demographic growth of Jewish population is much more, but we cannot succeed until now to create the positive immigration in Jerusalem of Jewish population, or even to keep the young families who grew up in Jerusalem here in Jerusalem. And of course, from my point of view, it will be probably the first task of the next mayor of Jerusalem, and it's a kind of a strategic challenge for Jerusalem for the next years.
So, is there or isn't there a green light from the USA regarding construction and development of Jerusalem? Because still we hear many complaints that it's not really happening yet. what really is behind the scenes?
Of course, the situation now is much better than it was only 2 years ago, or 5 or 6 years ago. For many years, I was the leader of the caucus in the Knesset for supporting of Jerusalem, and I remember many struggles and battles that we had in the Knesset in trying to promote the building in Jerusalem at the time of the previous presidency. Now the situation is much better, but still I can feel as a minister of Jerusalem, and many times as a person who is near the Prime Minister in a very delicate situation, that still there are some areas and there are some programs that still there is a kind of pressure under Israeli leadership. For example, the many very important new areas that we need to build, like Givat HaMatos.
So pressure coming from America.
Still much less than in the previous years, and now the challenge is, of course, they use this new situation for promoting more and more plants in Jerusalem. The problem is not the kind of the international problems, but you need much more plants to realize them in the real life.
Regarding the U.S.-Israel relations, do you feel that maybe we're in a stage of euphoria, and when it comes to action, things might look differently? We're talking about the ultimate deal, of course. Is there a fear, or do you think that we're on the good lane to really amazing connection, amazing alliance?
First of all, it's no secret that we have wonderful relations in recent administration in many, many fields and in many directions. But still, when we are speaking about Jerusalem, from one hand, of course, the decision of the moving of the embassy to Jerusalem was very, very important, and we will see the results of this move in the future, and not only now. But still, the promotion of the more and more building in Jerusalem, including so-called sensitive places like Givat HaMatos, like it's outside of Jerusalem, but very, very important for the future of Jerusalem in the area of E1 and in other places, it's very, very important. Everyone who is looking for Jewish united Jerusalem needs to understand that we need to build much more than we did it in the past 10 years.
As a cabinet minister, let's talk a bit about your role as cabinet minister. What can you tell us about the situation in the north? Every time something happens, they say, no, it's just, it's fire regarding Syria, it's not about us. There were rockets in the Kinneret. What's going to be? What could be done by Israel at this point?
The issue is not the one or two rockets in the Kinneret, it's a part of the internal battles in the Syria near our borders. The issue is, of course, Iranian policy that they are trying to build in Syria something like Lebanon, probably more a kind of the future challenge for the state of Israel. And our policy is very, very simple. From our point of view, this is the red line. And we, in the last 2-3 years at least, we proved many times that when Israel is speaking about something that is the red line, we can, in action, can show to Iran and to Syria leadership that's a really red line, and we did, and we will continue to do everything that depends on us trying to prevent Syria to become the part of Iranian army platform against us.
Last question, as a cabinet minister, we've been following the protest, the activities of the Golden and Show families. Of course, the soldiers who were killed, their bodies were kidnapped by the Hamas. What is your message to them at this point? What can be done and what is being done? Is anything being done? We know there are many demands from the government, from the families, from their followers, supporters.
First of all, I think all of us can salute the families that probably the first time in the last years in Israeli history, that the message of the families is, of course, we are interested in the families to see the bodies of our sons to return here to Israel, but the way to do it is not to release terrorists, but the way to do it, much more press on Hamas and others. I think this is a real solution. It's very, very important moral position of the families, and I'm very supportive of them in this. Till now, unfortunately, we didn't succeed to receive the result, but for the future of the State of Israel, I believe that the solution of this kind of situation is not the releasing of thousands of terrorists. The solution is much more intensive pressure on Hamas.
Minister of Jerusalem, Knesset member Zedeski, thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming to Jerusalem. Thank to Arun Sheva, that is one of the most important Israeli media, that they are supportive real national position and real national interest of this state. And of course, for me, the situation of all of us, we are sitting here in Jerusalem. We can see the old city from the windows of this hotel, and we kind to feel the history every moment that we are here. Not only to feel the history, every place that you are going here in the city, you can feel the responsibility of every one of us for the future of the city. Even my recent position as a Minister of Jerusalem, it's very interesting. Some months ago, we find it in small, near the hotel, by the way, a small seal that was written on this seal, the Minister of the City. The seal is 2,700 years ago. I told to the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu when we together opened a special archaeological exhibition in New York in the building of United Nations, if you thought that the idea to appoint the Minister of Jerusalem is your new idea, the one of the kings of Judea appointed the Minister of Jerusalem 2,700 years ago. You can't understand what kind of the feeling of responsibility you have, that you understand that you are in position that was established in this city 2,700 years ago.
That's very good. Thank you very much. Get a photo op. Meanwhile, I'll take the opportunity to call upon Knesset member Shuli Moalim to join us to the stage. A few seconds of the photo op and we will continue.
Yeah, exactly. You got the three of you. You call them up. I'll write this number. Great. Let me talk.
continuing now. With us now is Knesset member Shuli Moalem, the Bayit Yehudi, that's the National Religious Party. Everyone please be seated, we are continuing. Okay. The next interview I'm going to hold in Hebrew, and I'll translate as we go on. For our viewers live, lots of photo ops behind. So we will begin in a moment. Okay. חברת הכנסת שולי מועלם, ערב טוב.
ערב טוב מבורך, ברוכים הבאים לכולם לירושלים.
Of course, welcoming everyone to Jerusalem, Knesset member Shuli Moalem. Let's hear a round of applause. אחד הנושאים שדיברנו עליהם היום זה הפעילות של משפחת גולדין. מה אפשר לעשות ומה עושים והאם עושים מספיק?
אני מקדמת פה בברכה את אהוביי לאה ושמחה גולדין. אני עומדת בראש השדולה להשבת הדר גולדין ואורון שאול בכנסת, יחד עם חבר הכנסת עמיר פרץ. משפחת גולדין עושה המון כדי להזכיר לנו, חברי הכנסת, השרים, ראש הממשלה, חברי הקבינט, שהמטרה היא השבת הדר ואורון לארץ בלי שחרור מחבלים. המטרה היא הומניטרית תמורת הומניטרי. אסור לנו להסכים לשום סיוע הומניטרי בעזה לפני שמחזירים הביתה את הדר ואורון ואת האזרחים הישראלים שבידי חמאס. אני חושבת שהשאלה היא לא מה עושה משפחת גולדין, אלא האם אנחנו, שליחי הציבור, עושים מספיק, ונדמה לי שעד שהדר ואורון לא יהיו בבית, התשובה היא שאנחנו עוד לא עושים מספיק כדי להחזיר אותם.
Thank you very much. תודה רבה, אני אתרגם באנגלית. Knesset member Shuli Moalem, she heads with Knesset member Amir Peretz the lobby for the release of the bodies of Goldin and Shaul. The family, she says, does so much to remind us the goal, returning the bodies without releasing terrorists. Rather, it should be, the equation should be humanitarian. There's so much humanitarian aid to Gaza, and that should be, and that must be the equation. No release of terrorists, no surrendering to the terrorism, rather humanitarian. And the main question she asks is the people, our people in the Knesset, are they doing enough? And as a Knesset member, she says, no, not enough. רציתי לשאול על הנושא של ההסדרה של ההתיישבות. הרבה מנסים להבין אם זה מעקף או כופים את החוק. איך את מסבירה באמת גם לקהל מחוץ לארץ מה זה להסדיר את ההתיישבות? או שכן או שלא.
נקודת המוצא היא שעד שלא נכיל ריבונות ביהודה ושומרון, אנחנו חייבים להסדיר את ההתיישבות היהודית שכולה בשטח C. ולכן הגשתי את חוק ההסדרה, שהמטרה שלו היא לאפשר מציאות שבה אם נבנו יישובים על אדמה שהמעמד שלה לא ברור, אנחנו לא הורסים יותר יישובים. המציאות שבה הורסים יישובים ומגרשים משפחות מהבית היא מציאות שאסור לנו להסכים לה יותר. וכיוון שיש אדמות שהמעמד שלהם לא ברור, הדרך לפתור את זה היא בעצם להציע לערבים שיוכיחו שהם הבעלים של הקרקע, או קרקע חלופית, או כסף תמורת הקרקע הזאת. ברור לנו לחלוטין שהמטרה הגדולה היא החלת ריבונות ישראלית ביהודה ושומרון. עד שנעשה את הדבר הזה, ובדרך הזאת נסדיר את כל ההתיישבות היהודית ביהודה ושומרון, עד שנגיע לנקודה הזאת, אנחנו חייבים להפסיק את המדיניות של ההרס שהייתה מקובלת, ולצערי נהרסו הבתים האחרונים לפני כחודש ימים בנתיב האבות, ולהסדיר את ההתיישבות, או בקרקע תמורת קרקע, או בכסף תמורת הקרקע, שוב, רק למי שמוכיח בעלות על הקרקע.
תודה רבה. I asked about the legalizing of the Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria. You know, there's a legislation now, or there's debate regarding legislation about legalizing the communities, and people are trying to understand, is it Israeli or is it not? What Knesset member Shuli Malam is important to understand, is emphasizing here today, is that we cannot demolish Jewish communities. If there is a controversy about a specific land, the answer must be compensations, never evacuations. The pictures of Jews being evacuated from their homes, Jewish homes being demolished by the state of Israel, cannot happen. Compensations, just like you wouldn't go ahead and evacuate a building in New York. Rather, you see what is the issue, you go to the court, and you demand compensations or whatever is necessary. On the long run, and this is the most important thing to understand, on the long run the goal is sovereignty, Jewish sovereignty in Judea and Samaria, as mentioned by our guest today, Judea, the land of the Jews. Last question.
חשיבות של אירועים כאלה, החיזוק הזה של הקשר גם עם יהדות התפוצות וגם עם תומכי ישראל שאינם יהודים.
אני חושבת שמדינת ישראל בשנתה ה-70 נמצאת במאבק האם היא מדינת הלאום של העם היהודי, או שיש פה תפיסה אחרת שרוצה שהמדינה הזאת תהיה מדינת כל אזרחיה. ובמאבק הזה הקשר עם יהודי התפוצות והקשר עם תומכי ישראל הוא קריטי. הוא קריטי משתי סיבות. אחד, כי זאת מדינת הלאום של העם היהודי, ויהודי העולם כולו אמורים, צריכים להרגיש מחויבות אליה, והמדינה מחויבות אליהם. זה דבר אחד. ועם תומכי ישראל בעולם, הם הגב שלנו לבצע בעצם את החזון של מדינת ישראל. זוהי מדינת הלאום של העם היהודי. יהיה פה שוויון לאזרחים. אנחנו לא מתבלבלים. זאת מדינה שהחזון שלה הוא על דברי הנביאים. הוא לא הומצא לפני 70 שנה ואפילו לא לפני 120 שנה כשציינו את הקונגרס היהודי הראשון. אני חושבת שהחשיבות של הקשר עם יהודי העולם ועם תומכי ישראל היא באמירה הזאת. מדינת ישראל איננה ולא תהיה מדינת כל אזרחיה. היא רק מדינת הלאום של העם היהודי.
תודה רבה. So regarding, and we'll end with this, regarding the importance of events like this, strengthening the connection with Jewish diaspora, strengthening the connection with supporters of Israel around the world, this brings Knesset member Moalen back to the issue we talked about before of the Jewish state. Is this a Jewish state or is this just another state of all its citizens? And what Knesset member Moalen is emphasizing here today is that's exactly why we must strengthen our connection with Jewish diaspora and the supporters of Israel, because only with this connection, only thanks to the connection, thanks to the fact that this is the state of Jews everywhere, and this is a state that is supported by supporters of Israel and of the Jewish nation everywhere, only through this support we can actually fulfill the dream, fulfill the prophecy of a Jewish state in the land of Israel, Eretz Israel. תודה רבה, Knesset member שולי מועלם.
תודה רבה רבה, גם לתומכים הגדולים, גם לערוץ 7. אני חושבת שאנחנו נמצאים בנקודת זמן שהדיבור שלנו חייב להיות מאוד 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 ברור, וכל המציאות של החיים שלנו צריכה ללכת אל המקום של ארץ ישראל, עם ישראל, תורת ישראל, שהם הבסיס לקיומה של מדינת ישראל. אז תודה רבה לכולכם.
תודה רבה. Knesset member Shuli Malam thanked the participants, and just before I call upon Dr. Frager to invite our dignitaries, the Golden family asked to say just a few words, and we will continue with our guest, Anthony Scaramucci and Mike Huckabee. Dr. Leah Goldin, I have the honor to call upon Dr. Leah Goldin to join us to the stage. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you very, very much for joining us. On Arutz Sheva, we've been following the protest, the support, the solidarity from that Motzei Shabbat outside of your home when the IDF announced that your son was killed. Until today, a few days ago, we were together with the soldiers coming in. Today, I'd like to talk about the international protest, the international campaign. We have very important visitors from abroad. What could they do? What could be done?
I will start with the first statement that Israel is the only state in the world that feeds its enemy during wartime, providing them food, water, and medicine. Now, since Hadar was missing in action, and then after 36 hours he was declared dead according to forensic evidence, I would like to remind you that Hadar was killed 2 hours after ceasefire was declared on August 1st, 2014. Since then, and this ceasefire was brokered by the United Nations and the United States, supported by the European Union. So since then, we are looking for the support of the international community to put pressure on Hamas and on Gaza in order to return Hadar and another soldier, Ron, to decent burial in Israel. Okay? But about the international humanitarian law, only 6 months ago, on Erev Christmas, December 22nd, we had a special Security Council at the UN, together with Professor Erwin Kotler, the Canadian, and actually he proved, he set a legal case showing that Hadar's case is a violation of the international humanitarian law, not just by the Hamas, but legally by the Palestinian Authority. And this is actually the same legal authority that all the international community is providing money to Gaza. So the general theme is to get to those that give money to Gaza and say, hey, you cannot provide humanitarian aid to those that violate the international humanitarian law. Actually, you have to fight it. And I would use Professor Erwin Kotler's words 2 weeks ago at the European Parliament. He said to the donors to Gaza, whenever you provide humanitarian aid to Gaza, you should factor in the return of the soldiers. I mean, this is so basic.
And then my important question, the question we all here have, what answers are you getting? Because we're not seeing that. Not in Israeli government, forget it now. We're talking about international issues. What are the answers you're getting? I understand that from the UN. It's a very disappointing answer.
But the answers from the European countries was very good and responsive. Actually, they added us to the checklist whenever they do assessment here in Israel to the Gaza situation, a humanitarian situation, and they actually consider how to factor in the next humanitarian aid to Gaza with the return of the soldiers. Now, the other thing that is more important to our American friends is how President Trump can help us. Actually, President Trump showed us how we released the hostages from North Korea. There was a declaration of some agreement, and as a credibility check, there was the release of the hostages. Now we have the same situation here. We have a big initiative of the United States with the Egyptian to rebuild Gaza and to upgrade Sinai. And this is done together with the Egyptian. So we say now, please go and ask President Trump to deliver the message out and loud to the Egyptian as a credibility check. You should return Hadar and Ron because the Egyptians have the greatest leverage about the Hamas.
Dr. Leah Goldman. so much for joining us, and we look for good news. Thank you very much. So, another round of applause, I think, a round of applause of support, of solidarity. A family needs to be involved in the family issues and not in issues like this. I now have the honor to invite a true friend. He's our friend. But he's a real friend of the land of Israel. He's always out there acting on behalf of what's right. Dr. Joe Frager is bringing the Friends of Israel to Israel. He brings also Friends of Israel when necessary to events and conferences in America. Dr. Frager will, of course, call upon our important guests, Anthony Scaramucci and Mike Huckabee. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Joe Frager.
I want to thank everyone for coming. Golden family, the Governor Huckabee and I, Nick Musin, tried as hard as anyone to retrieve the body of their son Dar and Shaul Aron, and taking a lot of heat for that. But our purpose was to retrieve Dar's body, and I hope, God willing, we'll be successful. I know Anthony Scaramucci, who is here with us today, is going to be speaking to the President right after this dinner. And I hope that he'll have a chance to speak to the President about what Dr. Leah Golden just spoke about. So you do have friends in the United States. You do have friends in the United States. I want to thank the National Council of Young Israel, true friend of Israel, true friend of all of you. And Nachman Mostavsky, who's representing the National Council along with myself. We are planning more trips like this. We've done this over the years. They've been very successful. Mike Huckabee, this is about my 8th or 9th time with him. Each time we've come, history has been made. And I can go chapter and verse on that. I can tell you before Operation Protective Edge in 2014, Mike Huckabee, the first thing he did as soon as he got off the plane was to visit the Frankel family. At that time, we did not know that the Frankels had sustained a loss of their son. We thought he had just been kidnapped. And at that time, Governor Huckabee said to the Arab world, if God forbid anything happens to any of these 3 boys, you know you better watch out. 2 weeks later, Operation Protective Edge started. So when we come here, we come with a message of support, of an alliance, tremendous alliance, and we are true friends that will help you in every which way. We have your back. Unlike the former President Obama, who thought he had our back, but he didn't know what our back looked like. I want to thank our Sheva for putting these dinners together every time. It's not easy. I want to give a mazal tov to Eliran Baruch, who got married last night, who's here tonight. It was beautiful. Chala. We are so happy that they could be with us tonight. He's done so much for these trips, particularly to be successful, and this particular trip to be hugely successful. We thank the Almighty who has brought us together as a Jewish people, and we are Am Yisrael Chai forever. I want to thank our sponsors of this trip and many trips to come. Ken Abramowitz, who I don't go anywhere without, who you heard from already. Janina Sperlin, who's been trying to get on these trips, finally got here with us, Yoel Lefkowitz. Of course, Josh Eisen and his son, and Moshe, who's being bar mitzvah tonight. Came here for his bar mitzvah. He doesn't realize how important this dinner is for his future, but that is our future. Moshe Eisen is our future, because what we do here, he sees, and he's only 13 years old, and he's going to take the message, and believe me, that is how we instill in our future the incredible power of our people, the power of the Almighty, who watches over us every step of the way. I want to thank Charles Gucciardo, who's my wingman. He's my wingman. We almost forgot him in Ariel. He was going to make Aliyah without knowing it. We forgot him. He was home alone in Ariel. He didn't realize how attached he was to the land of Israel. It was a big joke, but it really means a lot to all of us. Thank God you made it, Charles. You made it tonight. We almost left you there. Okay. Lev Parnas, all the way from Odessa, is coming here. I met him in America First, major super PAC with the President of the United States. Lev is one of the biggest supporters of the President of the United States. He's here tonight with his partner, Igor Frumo. Anthony Scaramucci. I told Anthony, I said, anytime you speak, you should be paid. He's paying us to come to speak. That's incredible. I've never said anything like it. But we survived it. He's one of the biggest personalities in America. One of the biggest. This guy's on television every day. I can't even reach him. I only speak to him when he's in Israel. He's on Fox, CNN. He was on Jake Tapper the other day. He couldn't go to Masada with us because he had to go with Jake Tapper and tell CNN what fake news is all about. He's faking than the fake news. It's amazing. He's the only one who can do it. He's the only one who can go on CNN. Well, Mike does go on CNN once in a while too. He goes, but there are only a few people who can go on the other side and actually communicate to the other side very well. Both of them are here tonight. Mike Huckabee and, of course, Anthony Scaramucci. Very important to be able to communicate with not the choir. If you can communicate with the unchoir, with the non-amen corner, then you have done something special. And these two are doing it every day for America, for Israel, for the world. Dave Jacobs is sponsoring tonight, his family. He was just talking about Jesse Helms. Jesse Helms, who was an enemy of Israel, turned around because of Bobby Jacobs. He's writing a book about it. Because of Bobby Jacobs and his wife, they were able to take Jesse Helms, who was not a friend of Israel, and turn him around and make him the best friend of Israel ever. You just don't realize what goes into this. You don't realize how important America is to all of us, and how important it is to take our friends over there and make them into great friends. Sorry, I'm getting carried away. Sorry, my wife's already motioning that I'm just kicking in the ass. Dr. Joseph Felder, my colleague in gastroenterology in New York, Manhattan. I should make your schedule with you. Dr. Aaron Lieberman. I just want to say, I've said enough already. I now want to introduce one of the greatest friends Israel has ever had, and that is Governor Mike Huckabee, whose daughter came to Israel with me and her father at least twice, and we believe 3, maybe even 4 times. I can't remember because it goes back so many years already. I have gone with the Huckabee family, had it with Sarah, with David. I have come to Israel many times with the Huckabee family. I don't know if you understand what the word Huckabee means. In German, Huckabee means up the hill. This man deserved to be president of the United States. Okay, you got President Trump, we're happy, no problem. But this man could have been president, but he is the biggest loyalist to the president now, and his daughter has kept the administration intact and functioning and real. And she stood up to all of the protests. She has taken it on the chin for every single American. She has taken it on the chin like nobody. She's been kicked out of restaurants. She has to go around with a security detail. Her life is being put in jeopardy, all because she stands for America. She stands for freedom. She stands for Israel. She stands for the world. And we are going to continue. And God bless her. God bless the Huckabee family. God bless Mike Huckabee.
I will be very honest and tell you, Donald Trump was not my first choice for president. I was my first choice for president. But he was my second choice for president, and I'm delighted he's there. And look, we got a Huckabee in the White House. It just wasn't the one I thought it was going to be. These days, my introduction is usually very simple. It doesn't go back to when I was governor or lieutenant governor or a presidential candidate or a television host. I'm usually just simply introduced as Sarah's dad, which is fine. Now, I am mindful of the fact of two things. First of all, Dr. Frager, who we love, wants us to be on a bus at 7:15. And the only thing standing between you getting at least a little bit more sleep than you got last night and not getting it would be Scaramucci and me. I want to just mention this to you, that tonight has been a wonderful night with some terrific speakers. I used to say a lot when I was governor, we'd go to these public ceremonies, and all the state representatives and senators and different people would speak. Sometimes we would say, everything that needs to be said has been said, but not everybody has said it yet. Since it's already been said, I'm going to give the best speech I've ever given by making it the shortest. And simply saying to you, thank you for being a part of this trip. Thank you for recognizing that it is not just important, it is essential that the United States continue to be the best friend Israel has, and that we as Americans continue to be ambassadors to foster the kind of goodwill that Israel desperately needs, because Israel gets treated around the world a lot like my daughter got treated at the Red Hen restaurant in Lexington, Virginia. And because of that, it's more important than it's ever been that all of us do what we can to get the message of freedom and democracy, of the kind of liberty that Israel gives to its citizens. It wasn't that many months ago that Dr. Frager, several of you in this room, were with us when we went to Josephstown. We went in an armored vehicle. At 2 in the morning, we drove around burning tires. When we got out of the armored vehicle, we coughed back tear gas, and we were hustled quickly into the area where we could go and pray at Josephstown. Now, where were we to have to go through such extraordinary measures to simply offer a prayer at a site that is holy to both Jews and Christians? We were in Israel. But we were in a part of Israel that is controlled by a group of people who believe that nobody should be able to go and pray at Joseph's tomb except they should control the access. It's an absolute violation of the Oslo Accords. But does the world condemn them? No. It is an affront to me as a Christian and to many of you as Jews that a place that is holy and sacred is all but off limits because because of the animosity and the anti-Semitism that exists that has never been called out. Muslims can freely go to the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock and pray. Nobody prevents them from doing that. In fact, the Israelis steadfastly protect them to do that. And I think we need to say to the world that Israel does more to protect Muslims and Christians than often they do to protect Jews to go to the Kotel and pray. And they need to get the credit for that. And we need to be the ambassadors to tell that story. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be with you, to have dinner with you, and to share this time in Israel with you. In Jerusalem.
Well, I have the incredible honor, privilege, pleasure, one of the most lovable people I've ever met. Person I feel like I'm a brother to. He knows we call each other brother. I don't call too many people brother, but I do call Brother Scaramucci brother. And I don't know if it's our Italian, whatever, I don't know. It's Charles, I don't know. We've tried to analyze this up and down. We can't get too far. But Anthony Scaramucci, and by the way, Governor, I can't thank you enough, but you have done so much for the state of Israel. Nobody can thank you enough. Going to Joseph's tomb was one of the most inspiring, incredible efforts, I would say heroic efforts, champion efforts of a righteous Gentile who taught the Israeli people what they should know from the get-go. But we are here to relearn and reteach all that is basic and fundamental to the Jewish people. The land of Israel has been given to us by the Lord Almighty, and therefore it is our responsibility to make sure that we ensure that the land of Israel is protected and secure and remains totally, every 1 inch in the land, of the land, in the hands of our people. And Anthony Scaramucci is one of those incredible individuals who sustained incredible, I mean, he was the first to be taken out by the media instead of the president. In other words, you know, all the president's men, he was one of the president's men. He took the hit for the president from the media. And you know what? And he's back on his feet because he's a brilliant mind, Harvard Law School graduate. He's an incredible, loyal individual to the President of the United States, probably the most loyal outside of Sarah Huckabee and maybe Kellyanne Conway. Outside, and Mike Huckabee. There aren't that many, and Jared, there aren't that many, and David, there are not, and Jason, there are not that many loyalists that he has, I'm telling you, that will give their blood for the president. Anthony is one of those people who's given more than his blood, he's given his guts as well. And I'm not kidding, this man goes out on there and takes on the Bill Mowers of the world, the Wolf Blitzers of the world, you know, you name it, he's there fighting away. And he is so brilliant that he wins every day for the President of the United States. Without further ado, Anthony Scaramucci.
That's a big introduction. I want to thank you for that, Governor. It's a huge honor to be here with you. And so I was figuring it out at the table. So I left the White House after 11 days. You can Google what happened. It's one of those fabled stories. But one of the things I'm most proud of is on my first day, when I was in the Oval Office with the President and we were discussing who should be the press secretary, I told him it should be Sarah Huckabee Sanders. He made the decision, not me, so I'm not taking credit for it. But point is that she's a wonderful person, and she is a leader. She's a very honest person, and she's a righteous person. And I'll tell you, the thing I love about her the most is that she goes up there every day and she speaks with passion from her heart about policies that are good for America. And she takes a level of income that sort of isn't fair, but she handles it like a world-class woman. So, Governor, I'm going to be very, very she's such a wonderful person. I figured out at the table, I was only there for 11 days, so I figured out at the table that Sarah's lasted 33 mooches. Okay, this is like 11 days is now a mooch apparently in my family. You know, my wife got me a glass and said I was White House communications director for only 11 days. All I got was this coffee mug. So anyway, I want to tell you something quickly, and then I'm going to leave, because I was really thinking about this today when I came back from the Golan Heights. A couple of years back, I read a biography of Augustus, which was obviously a seminal time in Christian history, because that's when Jesus was born under his reign, or just during his reign. And there's a map, I don't have it with me, but there's a map that will trace back all of Western civilization, its canon, its laws, to this place right here, to Jerusalem and to that foundation stone. And when you look at the canon of Western laws and the principles and the overall secular theology, it's really based on the Torah. And it's based on the concepts in the New and Old Testament. And we were talking to one of the journalists here from the Jerusalem Post, and I brought this up, and I'll mention it to you, that the biggest and most important minority in our civilization, the most important minority, is the individual. Because when you think about it, if the individual is endowed with rights, and the individual is given an opportunity to express themselves, then we know about mankind is that mankind's opportunities are infinite and they're limitless. And when you step back in history, you go back 5,500 years, it is because of the Jewish religion, the concepts of Judaism, that this fire of individual spirit started and has run across our civilization for the last 5,500 years. And I can show you a map, I don't have slides with me, but I can show you a map where Augustus reigned and pushed the empire, the West survived. And where Augustus wasn't able to get to, in other regions, north, frankly, of Western Europe, the laws are very, very different. It's more of an autocracy, and it's more of a command and control situation as opposed to individual liberty. And so when you think about minorities, and you think about the context of minorities, the individual is the most important minority. But right up there, and tied for first place, are the Jews. And the main reason why is if you think about the persecution, and you think about the population of Jews throughout world history and their contribution to the civilization, whether it's technology, medicine, software, entertainment, sports, accounting, finance, whatever it may be, the Jewish people have made an unbelievable outsized contribution to the civilization. I can say this as a non-Jew. I can say it to you. Many people here in the audience are Jews. You're not capable of saying it about yourselves, but I can say it. And you should be super, super proud of what you've done. And so I know the governor feels very strongly about this, and so I'll say it on his behalf and my behalf. This place needs to be protected forever. The permanency of the Jewish state is important not only to the United States, and I say that personally, not as a governmental official, but just my personal view, but not only to the United States, but to the world and the concept, ladies and gentlemen, of the individual. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank the mooch. Okay, now I'd like to call upon Professor Eugene Kantorovich, who's Director of International Law at the Kohelet Policy Forum and Professor of International and Constitutional Law at Northwestern University. Professor Kantorovich, bevakasha. Thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us.
Great pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I'd like to begin actually with, guys, the food is great, but some food for the mind and soul. I'd like to talk first of all about this legislation which is considered controversial, and we'll try to understand why is it controversial. The Chok HaLe'om. How do you define it, by the way? How do you call it?
It's the nation-state law.
Nation-state, because this is the state of a nation. First of all, when you're debating, it's not only politicians who are debating, also people of law, legislators. What is your slant? How do you look at it?
The law is similar to provisions found in many European constitutions. It says that Israel is the nation-state of the Jewish people, where their sovereignty is realized. It says that Hebrew is the official language, Jerusalem is the capital, and all of those provisions are completely commonplace. Throughout Europe, for example, where every country has significant national minorities, only 2 countries have more than one official language. So this is very basic. And Israel, the one nation in the world where Hebrew is the majority language, to have Hebrew as the primary official language, these are basic provisions. There's nothing in this law that takes away the individual rights of any Israeli citizen, or that gives special privileges to any Israeli citizen.
Is it practical or is it declarative?
It is mostly declarative, but we see how important that declaration is. Because a lot of people say, why does Israel need to say it's the nation state of the Jewish people? Everybody knows. But it turns out it's the kind of thing that maybe everybody says they know, but when Israel actually puts it in their constitution, as so many countries have in their constitutions, then it becomes a problem. And that suggests that people might say they know, but they don't really want it to be official.
So do you think that in the future there might be issues and debates where suddenly someone will say, wait a second, there's a law, the nation-state law?
The nation-state law is important because it limits the ability for the Israeli Supreme Court to write its own constitutional provisions about this. Israel doesn't have a written constitution, but in absence of one, the Supreme Court has felt fairly free to write the constitution that they wish the Parliament of Israel would have written.
Okay, you're mentioning the Supreme Court, and another thing that sometimes people see from a side and hear the headlines is the Supreme Court, the government versus the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is being, some people say, well, they're not the bad guys, they're here doing their work, and then comes the government. What is important to understand when people, especially from outside, are seeing the whole issue of the battle, the struggle with the Supreme Court about the power?
The Israeli Supreme Court is absolutely unique in the level amongst democratic countries in its level of undemocratic power. Unlike in the United States, judges of the Supreme Court are not picked by the government. They're actually most of them controlled by the judges. They're picked by a committee controlled by the judges. And they have, there is no written constitution. There is no written constitution. Maybe I'll just speak loudly.
1, 2. Let's try this one last time.
There is no written constitution, but in the absence of one, they have invented judicial review, and they strike down legislation not because it's contrary, but because it's contrary to values that they themselves have constitutionalized. So they're not picked by the government, they're picked by themselves, and they interpret a constitution that they have basically crafted out of it themselves.
Okay. So it's working only with me. Now let's talk about an important knock on the door, you might say, that you're knocking on the door of the legislators and the people in America, saying, guys, you have a law. I'm not asking to legislate something new. Start upholding this law. Tell us about this. You wrote an op-ed recently.
So I think if I were to tell people, certainly here, that Congress is about to pass a law that would cut off funding from UN organizations that accept the Palestinian Authority, the PLO, as a member state, despite the fact that the PLO is not in fact a state, people would be very excited and say that would be a great law to have, to defund UN agencies that try to give the status of a state to the Palestinians outside of negotiation, outside of a peace process, to basically give them what they're asking for and free them from the need of negotiating with Israel. It turns out there is such a law. In 1994, Congress passed a law that says any UN-affiliated agency, and there's a lot of them, that accepts the PLO as a member is not eligible for US funding. This law, unlike many such laws, it's non-waivable, it's non-optional, it is completely mandatory. And in the last years of the Obama administration, the Palestinians went ahead and they did join such a UN organization. And the Obama State Department came up with a fairly convoluted excuse to not cut off funding. It was the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, which runs the Paris Protocols, and the Obama administration was very committed to joining this. He didn't want to defund it. Now, of course, that sets a very bad precedent. And since then, especially in the wake of the movement of the US Embassy, the Palestinians have retaliated by joining 3 more such UN agencies, and the United States continues to fund them. The law says not $1 of taxpayer funding, and under the US Constitution, which is written and is quite explicit, not a single cent of taxpayer money can be appropriated except as Congress specifies.
Do you know of any responses among the American legislators about this?
Well, so now it's even past, it's not an issue for the legislature, now it's an issue for the administration. And I understand that probably the staff at the State Department, which originally had this idea of not defunding these organizations under the Obama administration, are probably not working expeditiously to defund them. But the statute is very clear. My think tank, the Kohelet Policy Forum, came out with a very detailed report explaining how all these agencies clearly qualify under the law. And some people say, but still, it's bad to defund the UN agencies because they do useful things. But I think it's a fundamental, first of all, the US Constitution is also important, and it's absolutely clear you cannot fund them. And if they thought the US funding was so important, they shouldn't have accepted Palestinian membership. And the foreign countries that encourage the Palestinian internationalization effort to try to seek recognition as a state outside of negotiations, they can frankly pick up the $40 million tab for these organizations. It's pocket change to them if it's such a problem. And if it is a problem, the Palestinians should, it lies at the feet of the Palestinians who politicize these organizations. And we know what happens when the Palestinians join these organizations. They become fora for beating up on Israel. The Palestinians joined UNESCO, and we know now UNESCO gets together and passes resolutions saying Jerusalem has no Jewish connection, Hebron has no Jewish connection. These are the holiest and most historic cities of the Jews. I'm scared to think what the Organization for the Prevention of Chemical Weapons, which the Palestinians have joined, what they're going to get together and say, now that the Palestinians can dominate their agenda.
Well, and a very important
Wake-up call.
Professor Kantorovich, thank you very much for joining us. Okay. Now let's take a quick view at the Middle East. I have the honor to call upon Dr. Mordechai Moti Kedar. You guys might see him on Fox, Al Jazeera. He's out there presenting the case in Arabic when necessary, and we'll run through north, center, and south, trying to understand what really is happening here and what really will or could happen. Dr. Moti Kedar, b'vakasha. Just wait. For our viewers online, again, of course, photo op, important people are here. We're going to be beginning momentarily talking about really the situation in the Middle East and where we're heading. Okay. Dr. Mordechai Kedar, we want to start from north or from south? It's your call.
Left, right, and center. It's okay, whatever you start.
We'll start from the north. You know, at the beginning it seemed that there are bad guys and good guys in the north. Maybe before Al Jazeera came, there was the modern versus the Assad. Who are the good guys and who are the bad guys at this point?
Well, unfortunately, the Middle East is full of too many bad guys, even those who look like good guys. For example,
Okay, guys, let's continue. It's important we can all sit down. We have 2, 3 more speakers. Food is coming out, but let's all sit down, please. So we're trying to understand who the good guys and bad guys are. I think it's important to know, you know. You meet one in the street.
Usually, in Israel and abroad, we said that Assad is a good guy because he keeps the agreement on the Golan very strictly, and this is a man which, you know, you can rely on him, and you can make business with him, and he's a state, and with the state you can make business. The problem is that the same Assad, who's viewed as a nice man, both his father and the son, were actually in bed with the Iranians, with Hamas, with Hezbollah big time, with the Islamic Jihad, and every terror organization which worked against Israel day and night. Assad was behind it. So, what do you mean, good guy? The fact that he keeps the agreement on the Golan, he had reasons. But he fought against us in every other possible arena. So, to define him as a good guy, only because he doesn't shoot at us, but he sponsors others which shoot at us, this is insane. Okay? So that's what I mean. Mubarak on the south. He was a guy because he was with us. But he allowed smuggling weapons, including missiles, from Sinai to Gaza. Why did he allow them? Because he wanted us to take care of Hamas. Because when they shoot us, we will shoot them and kill them for him. And this is what was malicious kind of thinking. Means there are no good guys. Even the Saudis, you know, everybody talked about the Saudis as our friends, new friends in the Middle East. Yesterday it was published that they are demanding to give Jerusalem to the Palestinians. What do you mean by good guys? So, some people could be, for a while, good guys. But basically, cannot be carried out by this kind of gestures, which sometimes you get.
How do you think, how do you say Israel should relate to what we see in the Golan Heights? A rocket here or a rocket there. People are relating to it as accidental. Is it accidental? Is it on purpose? Is it somewhere in the middle? We had the jet, of course, coming in.
Look, you know what? I don't care if it's accidental or not. What we should keep forever is our deterrence. Let others be afraid of us. This is what deterrence means. And this is actually our condition to remain in this area. Peace agreement is nothing more than a piece of paper. In this area, only if you are invincible, you get peace. Not because you have an agreement, but because people are afraid of you. And this is the situation which Israel should create forever. So in this will actually give us peace forever. If we are forever invincible and too dangerous to mess with. That's all.
Just want to continue, but guys, let's continue down. We go center Israel and we look at the Palestinian Authority. It's almost a consensus that there's no real partner there. But on the long run, what are we going ahead to? What can be done with the so-called Palestinian Authority, the Palestinian state?
Well, the Palestinian Authority was born 26 years ago, 25 years ago, as a dead body politic. The only reason, or the only way for this to live was by money, which is funneled to this artificial entity, the PA, by the United States of America, by Europe, by all kinds of organizations, and by Israel. Because Israel had some kind of madness to think that Arafat became our friend. And only insane would think such a thing. So, what we should do is what we should have done 26 years ago, to undo the whole thing and to approach the local families, the local clans, to take over the place. Means to create emirates in every Arab city in the West Bank or Judea and Samaria, and an emirate in Hebron for the clans of Hebron, Jabri, Kawas, Menache, Tamimi, Yabusnena, another emirate in Jericho for the Arikat tribe. This is their land, this is their homeland, the city. It's a different concept. Then another emirate in Ramallah for the and Tawil and Abu Ain, another one in Shechem, Nablus, for the Masri, Tukan and Chakra, for the local clans, and another one in Kalkilia, Tulkarem and Jenin, while Israel should forever remain in the rural areas, offer citizenship to the villagers, which are 10% more or less of the population. This is not a demographic threat, and this will leave Israel with a maximum space and a minimum number of Arabs. And this is the only solution which can survive on the land, because it's connected to the sociology in the Middle East. Because in the Middle East, whenever you create a state which is a conglomerate of tribes, clans, ethnic groups, religious groups, sectarian groups, you get a mayhem. Look at Syria, Iraq, Libya, Yemen, Sudan. While if you create emirates on the basis of clans, like in Dubai, Kuwait, Qatar, you got a normal state, successful state, with oil or without. Dubai has no oil. So this is how sociology affects politics in the Middle East. And if you don't go along sociology, it blows up in your face. And this is the only solution for the Israeli-Palestinian issue.
Let's end with the South. It seems, at least in terms of Hasbara and PR, that the South is a big challenge, because we've talked about the North, about the rockets, and in the middle, with the Palestinian Authority, we're talking about some sort of entity to deal with. Here we're talking, according to what we see, of course, in the headlines around the world, kites, balloons. Should there be a different attitude towards these, or a balloon with a fire like a rocket?
Anything which can kill or injure, what is the difference between balloon and rocket? Only the velocity. But it can devastate you, and this can devastate you. If it falls on you and burns you up, so what? Thank goodness it didn't happen. But the same thing, it's the same thing. This flies faster, a missile, and a balloon flies slower. This is the whole difference. So, we should have made the rules of the game, and telling them since day 2, you know what, until you understand what happens, since day 2, guys, another balloon, we start to target the connection between the heads and the shoulders of the Hamas leaders, because they are responsible. They took the Gaza Strip by force 11 years ago. They are responsible for everything which comes out from the Strip. And this is why we, Israel, should have held them responsible to the degree that whenever somebody sneezes towards Israel, and we don't like it, we target the connection between the heads and the shoulders of the leaders of Hamas. And they should know, and you know, after the second one, the others would learn the lesson and behave. And this is unfortunately how this Middle East works. It is not Europe here, it's not America, it's not Canada, it's not nowhere in the world. This region has its own culture. And you can see from Morocco in the west all the way to Iraq in the east. And this is by credible threat. And credible threat means that people take you seriously. When the people take you seriously, you can live in peace.
Dr. Mordechai Kedar, thank you very much for joining us. Very important. Follow Mordechai Kedar, introduce many important ideas and understandings. Okay. Now, at the end, I'd like to jump to the future, to 2050. Jerusalem Council member Aryeh King, I'd like to call upon Aryeh King now, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk a bit also about his activity, but also about a program for Jerusalem 2050. Aryeh King, bevakasha. By the way, you know what Aryeh is in the translation of Aryeh? What's the translation of Aryeh? Lion. Ladies and gentlemen, Lion King. You must have heard that a million times. Okay. He's a professional, guys. Okay. Good evening, Arya.
Good evening, Yoni and all the audience, visitors from Israel and from abroad.
Now, you know, there's so much to do in Jerusalem 2018, and we'll talk a bit about that, but I'd really like to understand why it's time now to think about Jerusalem 2050. Tell us about this special program.
For many years, we hear many programs and ideas of how to divide the city, how to give our enemies part of the holy city of Jerusalem. Just few minutes ago, I would say, an hour ago, a serious candidate to be a mayor of Jerusalem that sat here, Elkin, is talking about taking out of Jerusalem few neighborhoods. So all of these ideas are coming because we don't raise our ideas and our vision for Jerusalem. We are keeping these ideas and visions and the future to the leftists. And this is why we all the time talking about giving, passing to them, and we never thought about what really we want and how we want to see Jerusalem in the future.
So how do we want to see Jerusalem? Let's focus on the positive now.
So first of all, we must expand the borders of Jerusalem. First of all, we need to expand the borders of Jerusalem by thinking about Jerusalem as a metropolis, not just as a city. Meaning that Ma'ale Adumim, a town that is east of Jerusalem, need to be a neighborhood of Jerusalem. Gush Etzion, that is in the south of Jerusalem, the same, need to be part of Jerusalem. Once we will start thinking about Jerusalem in this way, we will start also building and spending and investing in infrastructures, in roads and other infrastructures that will create really a greater Jerusalem. And this is, I must tell you, Yoni, there is no other way of protecting the future of Jerusalem beside this way, about thinking how to expand and to widen the borders of Jerusalem, because this is also the only solution how we can fight the demographic problem. We have people talking about, let's take out neighborhoods, because in this way we will take out Arabs out of Jerusalem. But why don't think about, in a positive way, how to solve the problem? Instead of taking out parts of Jerusalem, let's add areas to Jerusalem and build there for Jews. Now, another significant issue in this program is about the international airport of Jerusalem. How many people, Ketzele, I'm talking to you, how many people know that in Jerusalem there is an international airport?
There is now?
There is still officially, legally, in Jerusalem, an international airport. It's in Atarot, in the north part of Jerusalem. But I'm sure I can count in one hand, maybe two hands, the number of foreigners, people not from Israel, that landed or took off from this international airport. And why is that? Because 18 years ago, at the year 2000, the Prime Minister Ehud Barak decided to close the international airport of Jerusalem. Who can imagine a decision like that being implemented and nobody is arguing that? About let's reopen the international airport. Now unfortunately, I'm telling you, even if we will want today to open the international airport, we cannot anymore open it because of this decision of Ehud Barak, and later the way that the government of Israel deals with this international airport. So you will ask me, so what? The capital of Israel will not have an airport? So yes, in the plan of Jerusalem 5800, in this plan, we have a place for international airport. This international airport was planned by the most experienced people in Israel for airports design and planning. And the location for this international airport is between the Dead Sea and Ma'ale Adumim. And this, we think, this is the best place for international airport for Jerusalem. We have already the name. We want to call it the Trump International Airport. And I will give you another reason why this international airport is solving another small but significant problem that we face in Israel. There's no, I don't know how many of you here are aware, but the Arabs that are living in Judea and Samaria, I call them Zionist prisoners, or the prisoners of Zion. Why that? Because Arabs that are living in Jericho, Nablus, Ramallah, they cannot leave Israel. You can imagine we have millions of Arabs that if they want to leave the country, it's almost impossible because we are not allowing them to get to Ben Gurion Airport for security reasons. So I'm saying let's open the Trump International Airport between the Dead Sea and Jerusalem, and then we will have, in 1 minute, after we build it, we will have an international airport with the access to 2.5 million Arabs living in Judea and Samaria. And everyone here understands what that can make, what a significant change for the future of Israel, not just of Jerusalem.
And that's how ideals become practical ideas. Thank you very much, Jerusalem Council Member Eliakim. And now, ladies and gentlemen, that'll be all for tonight. Dr. Joe Frager is joining us now with this just in. One more person. Okay, Dr. Joe Frager will call upon another person, and then we'll end the program.
Thank you so much again for your patience coming out tonight. I have a future congressman from America. His father fought in the '67 war for Israel. His name is Amir Benno. I wanted to say a few words. He came on this trip specifically to meet with us. I give him a lot of credit for that. And hopefully he can win in New York. It's not easy for a Republican to win these days in New York. But we're hoping, please God, Amir Benno, father fought in the '67 war, he should win.
Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Frager. My name is Amir Benno, and my family is from Israel. My father was born in a refugee camp in Tel Aviv in the 40s. Before it was the state of Israel, he grew up here. He fought in the IDF. He was in a unit called the Shayedet 13, which the Americans here is like the Navy SEALs. It was a Navy commando unit. He fought in the '67 war and remained in Israel after. And in the early '70s, he came to the United States searching for education. He came with nothing. He lived at a YMCA. He worked in a hosiery store to put himself through school. And while he was doing that, he met my mother. And they got married. And through hard work and sheer determination and willpower and self-reliance, he made a success of himself. And he raised my brother and my sister and myself with the idea that hard work and dedication and commitment to your values, you can be successful. And he also imbued in me, my whole father's family still lives here, still lives in Ramat Gan. And so he imbued in me the sense that Israel, and this is something that you get, and I'll say to Governor Huckabee, it's really spot on. To come here, to bring people here who are not Jewish, and to make them ambassadors for Israel back to the United States is critically important, because when they come here and they see how wonderful this country is, and they see how well it treats its people and the equality, the nonsense, the shtuyot that you hear from the left about the BDS movement, about what they're doing, what their objectives are, it's malarkey, and it really needs the light has to be shined on how foolish that is. And so that's my hope. My hope is that I get elected to Congress in the 4th District in New York. It's in Nassau County. There's a large Jewish community there. And I'm an ambassador for Israel. I'm an ambassador to say that Israel should always be and always will be the homeland of the Jewish people, and there's nothing wrong with putting that down in writing. And for those who say that there's a problem, we can say it but we can't write it, I say that's foolish. We can write it and we must live it. And beyond that, Jerusalem should always be the undivided and will always be the undivided capital of the Jewish people. So I won't get into all of my platforms, that's more Long Island based. But I will tell you that I feel in my neshama for Israel. It's not something I say in order to appeal to constituents. It's something I say because it's part of my DNA. It's part of who I am. And we need members of Congress who will stand with Israel, shoulder to shoulder, no matter what. Because what's good for Israel is good for the United States, and what's good for the United States is good for Israel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and that completes the live broadcast of our event. Continue to enjoy, continue to talk, continue to communicate, and thank you so much for coming here to Israel, and thank you all for joining us on this important broadcast. We'll be with you on many more events. Thank you very much.
If you could introduce yourself, and we want you to talk to the camera.
Do I talk to the camera? Okay.
Yeah.
So let me hold it.
No, it's all right. I'll hold it. So just state your name.
Dr. Mordechai Kedar, Jerusalem.
What do you think the goals of this forum were, and do you think they were accomplished?
Well, this forum is actually a group of Israel supporters from the American political arena, people who were and maybe still are, or maybe still have a future in the Republican Party, and as advisors of the White House and other arms of the American administration. Very important to keep connection with these people, to show them, to educate them, and to bring them together with Israel, to stand with Israel wherever they go in the future in the corridors of the American administration.
You spoke today about protecting our northern and southern borders. Do you think that your message was inspiring to people in the audience, and do you think that it can actually have an effect in a positive way?
Well, I believe that those who are in charge of shaping policies vis-a-vis the Middle East do need ideas, and sometimes ideas which come from scholars who live in this region, understand this region, and speak the languages of this region, could be very, I would say, helpful for people who have to shape policies vis-a-vis the Middle East.
Excellent. I'm just going to close the door. Oh, you closed the door. Thank you very much. It's okay? All right. And should he look at me or the camera? Maybe he should look at me. Look at the camera? Okay. And what do you think your goals are in terms of spreading this word that you had today?
Well, in order to make decisions, the good decisions, the right decisions about the Middle East, you need to learn about this region. People spend years and years in order to understand the mechanisms, sociology, anthropology, politics, economy of the Middle East, you cannot come for 2 days to this region and think that you understand something. Just like you cannot come to France for 2 days and to think that you know everything about the French people. You need the language, you need to delve into the literature, into the history, into the religions, especially when it comes to the Middle East, and the culture, which in the Middle East, the tribe actually is the name of the social game. And this is why tribalism here not only is alive and kicking, it is alive and killing. And if you don't understand the mechanisms, the chance that you make mistakes when you shape policies vis-a-vis the Middle East are more or less 100%.
How do you hope to improve relations and heal the animosity that's going on right now with the Nation Bill?
Well, the Nation Bill actually is a necessity for 70 years already. So whenever you do it, it's the right time to do it because it was supposed to be there since the beginning of the state. Unfortunately, some systems, especially the judicial system, were hijacked by agendas which are opposite to the Zionist and the Jewish ideas upon which the state was established. And in order to correct the situation, the Knesset was forced to legislate this nation law. And it is timely, maybe even too late, but it's better late than never. And whoever has anything against this law, in my mind, he is politically motivated, not objectively.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For your insight today.
Pleasure. And so
We'll talk.
you going?
Yes, we're just going to interview. You can't see me, right?
Yeah, it's fine.
It's okay? Okay. So this is for ILTV. If you could just say your full name.
Eugene Kontorovich.
And where are you from?
I'm a professor at Northwestern University and the head of the International Law Department at the Kohelet Policy Forum.
Do you think the goals for this forum were accomplished today?
Absolutely. It's, first of all, a great show of support on the part of prominent Americans, Governor Huckabee, Mr. Scaramucci, and it's an opportunity to raise in front of a lot of important and influential supporters of Israel in America some of the issues and problems in the headlines and some of the issues that haven't yet made the headlines that affect Israel.
What do you think the overall reception was today from the audience, from what you had to say and what the other speakers had to say?
The reception was fantastic, and I think especially today when there's such an extraordinary effort to create media headlines that things like the Jewish nation state law are problematic, when actually anyone who looks at them sees that there's nothing problematic there. There's a real effort, I think, in the media to drive a wedge between Israel and American Jewry, using things like this as an issue. And I think showing to American Jews that this is a totally normal law, this is a law that's commonplace in European countries, that's a crucial aspect of mending the rift, is just educating people what is actually in this law.
Do you think that this forum would actually accomplish that?
Nothing does the job by itself, but this is absolutely a start, because when people say that, for example, the Jewish nation state law drives a rift between American Jews and Israel, it's designed to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. When people hear it, they think, oh, there must be a bad law, it must be true. And it's designed to create the rift that it warns about. So trying to explain to people what these laws actually do, that's an essential part of creating this rift.
Excellent. And what was your personal mission in coming to this conference, and you think it's been accomplished?
First of all, I wanted to meet and thank many great supporters of Israel. Also, I wanted to raise an issue that's quite problematic. The United States has a law on the books requiring America to defund UN agencies that accept the Palestinian Authority as a member state, because they're not a state, and because their membership in these organizations is an attempt to politicize them. In the past couple of years, and even in the past couple of months, the Palestinians have joined 4 such UN agencies. The State Department, however, has not been very quick to actually defund these agencies. The United States law is absolutely clear but the State Department has been, let's say, slow to wake up about this. And raising awareness about this issue is an important part of what we're trying to do there.
Excellent. Thank you very much for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you. So what's your beat? What do you cover?
Sure. What were your goals for the forum, and do you think you accomplished what you set out to do?
I came here with Dr. Joe Frager, and I met Joe about a month ago at a fundraising event for Donald Trump. He's a tremendous gentleman. He's got such a heart for Israel. He's done so much for this country, as has Donald Trump. I'm very happy to be part of the delegation that was sent here, and we came here because of the love that the United States has for Israel. This is my first trip to Israel, and I'm just annoyed with myself that this was the first time that I've come here and I've waited to such a late age to get here. I must tell you that this place is one of the most beautiful places on earth. It is the origin of everything that we hold dear in morals, in character, and in what we need to achieve as human beings. The purpose of us being here is to promote the safety of Israel, to promote the cohesiveness of this country, and to support this country in what needs to be supported. I believe in my heart that more Americans need to know the true meaning of Israel. And I really believe the only way to accomplish that is to get the word that we have here and what's going on tonight into the homes of the people of the United States. And I pledge to this country that when I go back, my efforts will be renewed to make sure that the support comes to the state of Israel.
Fantastic. You came with Dr. Frager, and what do you think his mission was, and do you think it was accomplished as well?
Well, I think that the whole mission of what the United States has to do here is something that's going to be ongoing for years. I personally believe that the seeds that need to be planted now have to go beyond the next 2 years, 4 years that Donald Trump will get elected again into the further administrations of the United States. So this needs to be a cohesive effort so that we can perpetrate the things that we are doing so that the future generations will be able to sustain what's being accomplished. So do I know whether it's been accomplished? The future will tell that. But I can only hope and pray that all that we set out to do is actually happening.
Fantastic. It's wonderful. Thank you very much for being with us.
It's my pleasure for you. I can't wait to come back.
Oh, I'm so happy that you had a good first experience here and you want to come back.
I wish you all God's blessings. I really do.
Thank you so much.
God bless you. Do you have a card that I can get from you?
I don't actually on me, but I
Okay,
will
would you
be in
email
touch
me?
with you.
That's fabulous. Thank you very much. So
Thank
nice
you
to meet
so
you.
much.
God
You
bless
as well.
להחזיק את זה? Shall I hold it?
No, I'll hold it. Stand where you are, a little back.
And I look to you? I hate when people talk for your hair and look at the camera.
Yes.
Okay, fine. I'm okay.
Ready? So if you could just state your full name.
Leah Goldin.
We'll wait.
Noisy.
So you spoke at the forum today about how Israel is the only country in the world that gives food to the enemy during wartime.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Look, this is our experience. I can tell you personally, to the Gaza war on 2014, two of my sons, the twin brother, Hadar and Sur, went to Gaza as young officers, and Hadar was part of the Givati company, and his responsibility was to guard the engineering forces that destroyed the tunnels. And his twin brother Tzur, he was commanding a rescue force. And as a rescue force, he went back and forth to Gaza to rescue Israeli soldiers, wounded and dead. But he rescued Palestinian families, and he provided them with medicines. And I mean, this was on his own decision, but we know that a lot of supplies went into Gaza during wartime. Now, this is, very special. But since then, we in Israel know that every day thousands of trucks are going into Gaza with supplies, And it's not just water, medicine, and food. It's everything. It's toys, everything. And from our point of view, Operation Protective Edge is not ended until Hadar and Doron are back. I mean, the two soldiers that were kidnapped, probably when they were helpless, wounded, or dead, we don't know. But they keep our soldiers as a bargaining chip. And we want to bring them home. I mean, first of all, we have to bring them because this is the commitment between the country and the soldiers, that not leave soldiers behind. This is the basic Jewish value to bring your dead to burial, to a decent burial. And Kol Israel Arvim de Bazeh, you know, this is so profound that we are still amazed after 4 years that we have to explain that. I mean, the necessity to bring our soldiers back. And we have started a campaign after Pesach, and we say humanitarian for humanitarian. So we don't want to stop the humanitarian aid to Gaza. We would like to see Gaza like Singapore next to us. It will be best for the region, best for the world. But we say humanitarian versus humanitarian for humanitarian. Bring first our soldiers back, which is the most humanitarian issue, and then you can get everything you want. But we are not there yet in terms of implementing it.
You've been very vocal about this, and do you see the government starting to respond, and have they been responsive in recent months, or are you being met with closed doors?
You know, it's not closed doors. They open the doors, they meet us, they hug us, but they don't do anything. That's why, you know, on January 2017, like 1.5 years ago, there was a cabinet decision to put pressure on Hamas not to return bodies of terrorists, Hamas terrorists, to stop visiting of families from Gaza to the terrorists Hamas terrorists in jail, stop what they call humanitarian visits of people from Gaza to get medical care in Israel. I mean, all of this is just a decision on paper that it's not implemented. That's why last December, we went to the Supreme Court, and guess what? We won. But we don't win on the Israeli side. We want to win against the Hamas. So this is our frustration in terms of what is really done, except saying we don't want to release sentenced terrorists. Okay, don't release, but flip the equation, do the other thing around, put pressure on Hamas to turn the fact of holding and capturing soldiers from an asset to a burden. So it will get to a point that the Hamas will understand that as long as they keep the soldiers, they lose things, and it will make them think again before the next kidnapping. But by now they win because they keep the soldiers, and Israel is not moving anywhere, just getting more and more how do you call it, dehumanization, activities like kites, burning the fields, like balloons with helium, burning the farms, you know. So, but everything begins with the fact that we don't fight for our values. And we actually established our campaign named Misdar Hadar. First of all, to bring back Hadar and Doron to decent burial, and then bring the values, bring our values, our basic values to the right place. But now what we learned from our trips around the world, that actually the international humanitarian law is on our side, you know, because what we claim now is that the Hamas and the PA, as long as they do not do anything to return Hadar and Doron, they are in a standing violation of the international humanitarian law. And as such, they are not entitled to get humanitarian aid. I mean, this linkage have been proved by Professor Erwin Kotler on our last visit to the European Union. And now we have to look for ways to implement it. not much in Israel. We hope that we can do it in Israel, but at and with the international community, wherever there are countries that are donating to Gaza, we have to approach them and remind them that they have to check the credibility of the ones that get their help.
Which countries have been most responsive to your cries?
At the moment, we've been to the European Union. We met mainly with parliament members. As you know, they come from different countries: Germany, Poland, Romania, the Netherlands. And we have to go on to, at the moment, we managed to frame our case, Hadar's case, as a humanitarian case. Now we have to proceed to approach the right people and the right decision makers and keep on with the European Union up to Mogherini to, first of all, say it out and loud, that and call for the release of Hadar and Oron and the civilians, and then continue and factor in their return to every place they provide humanitarian aid. I mean, this is the general idea, but we have to work on it until we manage to get to the results of having Hadar and Oron back in Israel.
Has the U.S. been helpful at all in
Yes, very much. We had a lot of meetings with American officials, with Ambassador David Friedman, with Jason Greenblatt, and we've been to the Congress a couple of times. And I think last week or 10 days ago, there was a letter published at the Washington Post written by David Friedman, Jason Greenblatt, and Gerald Kushner, actually saying to the people in Gaza that they will not get any financial aid until they stop the terror activities and return the soldiers and the civilians back to Israel. And this is a most important statement said by the Americans. Now we hope during our next visit to get closer to President Trump and get his help on the return of Hadar and Oron, because he knows how to do it. He did it with the hostages in North Korea. So now that the Americans are now initiating in our region a larger agreement with the Egyptian to rebuild Gaza and to upgrade Sinai, this is the point where we hope the Americans will approach the Egyptian and ask for the release of Hadar and Oron, because the Egyptian have leverage on the Hamas and have the way to convince them that they have to resolve this issue.
Leah, thank you so much for joining us. Your story is very touching, and I really pray for you that it gets resolved quickly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.